and we're back with more of the Shacknews Awards 2023. You know, it's been all fun and games up until this point, but now we're going to get hardcore. We're going to give out an award for Best Gore of the Year 2023. This is just gross, disgusting, ultra-violent awesomeness. And something that, you know, back in the 90s, Tipper Gore would be holding hearings about this sort of stuff. But when you go back and you look at the gameplay that she was like, won't someone think of the children? It's nothing compared to what these games this year in this category brought to the table. So take that, Tipper Gore. Our first nominee, this should surprise absolutely no one. NetherRealm Studios knocked it out of the park with the violence in Mortal Kombat 1 this year. Our next nominee is Dead Island 2. After that, RoboCop Rogue City. After that, Diablo 4. Dead Space Remake that came out in January of this year. And also Resident Evil 4 Remake, which definitely has some gore in it. Where should we start? Diablo 4. Who nominated this? Are they here? Yeah, go for it, Greg.
Diablo 4 has some really beautiful animations, and when you think of gore, it's not that it's detailed or hyper realistic. It's just like a lot of really cool death animations of skin melting off and then organs melting off, then bones crumbling into dust. It's like, and to get that kind of detail from that perspective can be kind of very like interesting. Like me and my wife are like, oh my god, it died. Oh my god, look at the animation as it like melts into a puddle of like goo. It's very fun. It's very over the top. Not super ultra realistic, but like still realistic enough to be like, oh, that was gross, you know, type of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and this, like, games in this category can be cartoony, because you think back to the early Mortal Kombat fatalities and whatnot, the amount of bones on screen, it was like far too many bones were flying out of bodies, but it just made it even more ostentatious and funny when it would happen. So gore can be humorous, gore can be ultra realistic. There's a lot of different ways that video games can implement that. So yeah, I think it's a fair nomination. Let's see. David, you really liked Dead Space Remake. Can you talk a little bit about the gore in it?
Yeah, a lot of the gore in that game, I mean, the best way to kill enemies, instead of going for headshots in Dead Space, you dismember them. But I think that you see a lot of the gore from just like the bodies kind of strewn through the corridors. And especially there are certain necromorphs who will like kind of facehugger style latch onto a body, spill some stuff into its mouth, and you see the corpse like reanimate. So it's not as like graphic as other nominees in this category, but it really enhances the atmosphere of just like terror and disgusting nastiness happening all around you.
Yeah, like the environments in Dead Space are just kind of gross looking.
Go ahead, I don't know. Like there are a few games that have a system so thoroughly built for layered violence as Dead Space. Like they built a system that specifically puts the bones of the enemy, the musculature of the enemy, and the skin of the enemy on different layers of the body. And so you can just outright destroy them at bits. And a perfect example of that, and this was the moment that I was like, this game is an easy 9 for me when I reviewed it. I love the focus beam, the one that you charge up. And when you put stasis, like there was a moment where I put stasis on an enemy, on a necromorph, loaded that thing up and blasted them point blank with it, and you could just see the skin wave off of their chest and face. The muscle just explode outward, and then the torso, once they came out of stasis, their torso just flew backwards and the rest of their limbs hit the ground. And I'm like, wow, that is a lot that just happened in one shot.
There's also the fact that
that's a lot of systems working together.
I think my favorite part, and this has been the case since the OG Dead Space, but like every enemy drops an item. To get that item, you have to like stomp the shit out of it, and then it'll eventually pop out of their ruined rib cage. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think in any other year, I think Dead Space might win this category because that game is gross as hell, and it's at its best when it's disgusting too. I love the environment there. Anyone else want to chime in on Dead Space? Danny, do you have something to say?
I mean, they've covered it pretty thoroughly. I mean, it's a game about dismembering different creatures. So yes, the gore is definitely up there. They did a good job of remake. I'm definitely impressed.
Yeah, and it's a game that came out earlier in the year, and people tend to forget. They tend to forget these come award season. We do our best to at least give these games a mention. But unfortunately, I think a game came out in September that's probably going to overshadow some of these other ones. So yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake came out this year, and it's terrifying. That game scares the crap out of me, and part of that is the gore. We actually had a moment during our charity stream where TJ got chainsawed from behind and murdered. That is disgusting. Like, that animation is very gross and real and gory, and I love that. I love the different animations on headshots, or to Denny's point about dismembering, when you're shooting legs off or arms or whatever in Resident Evil 4. I think the collision detection on the character models is pretty impressive. But yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I agree with everything you're saying. I think probably like there are gory parts about, especially the RE2 remake, that stand out to me more. But one of the awesome little touches, I think TJ and I were like giggling over this, was after you kill an enemy, you see the Las Plagas tentacles like squirming in their like ruined torso or their decapitated head. I zoomed in on those things. That's a mistake I didn't make twice. Like, that stuff is just nasty.
They really did an amazing job of like upping the situational deaths in that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm the type of person that goes and looks up like all the ways to die in a video game because I really appreciate the graphical design that goes into putting that stuff together. One of the ones in Resident Evil 4 that caught me off guard is if you get held by a villager and another one comes up on you and kills you with a hatchet. The first one will like push you down to your knees, hold you down, and the other one will hack your head off like 3 times. And I'm like, oh my god, that was like, that got to me. Oh yeah. And I feel like I'm pretty stalwart against that kind of stuff.
I feel like I saw that happen to TJ on a live stream. Oh no. Stop.
It's jarring as hell when it happens, because it's like a lot of the time when you die in RE, it happens kind of quickly. Like, things get out of control very fast and you die. But yeah, the combo of one person holding you down while the other one chops your head off is pretty wild. Obviously the chainsaw deaths are really scary. Yeah, it's awesome. The explosions are fun. The game's got a lot of great gore. With limbs flying around and stuff. It's just, yeah, outstanding gore in RE4. Oddly enough, I don't think it's gonna win either. But before we get on to who I think we'll probably have a lot to say about, we have 2 other nominees. RoboCop Rogue City's got some good gore.
Yeah.
Greg, you want to chat about it a little?
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, I'm pretty advocate about like how much violence I like in my video games, and I like it when it's over the top and not super realistic, just because it makes it more fun, it makes it more out there, and like RoboCop
feels more like a video game.
Yeah, more like a video game instead of mimicking real life. I like that kind of stuff a little bit better. And RoboCop does that specifically with the headshots and like the dismemberments. Like, there's way too much blood. The sound effect is completely ridiculous. Like when a head blows up, and there's just blood. It's not detailed. Just pieces of blood going everywhere. You don't see like bits and pieces of brain. It's not super detailed, but it's gratifying, and you laugh and you smile as heads are popping and arms are flowing off. You can even do like crotch shots in the game, and there's a really funny death animation of them grabbing their crotch and falling over, which is like very like 80s. I think it's kind of funny.
It's also a nod to the movies.
Yeah. I think it was a great, just not over the top, not super detailed, but still gratifying that you did it and had a smile on your face while you were doing it. That's not a demented smile in some cases with certain games.
It's important to note that there is an actual in-game like power-up that makes the game even more gory.
Yeah, more blood.
like,
just like the very Fallout-y, very like the Fallout part for like Bloody Mess, you know, more eyeballs, more pieces of bone flying everywhere that don't make any sense. Very, David, very Mortal Kombat 2-ish with like 10 rib cages flying out. You know, like
Yeah.
But a worthy nominee, and just an overall really fun game that I think we've talked about in several categories for good reason. It's a game that it's different. You know, and we'll get into it in the FPS discussion and maybe some other categories as well. But it's just a different game. I like that they stayed true to the movies. Like it feels like it's built in that universe.
Definitely hit a sweet spot, I feel like, this year.
Yeah, and it's been talked about on our social platforms all year, Danny. Like people have been eating that content up.
Yeah, it's nice to see a franchise kind of come back. You know, there's a ton of like, alien games out there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think folks saw a RoboCop game coming in 2023.
And that it would be this great. Yeah. It was definitely one of the surprises of the year for sure. Excuse me. All right, next nominee is Dead Island 2. Now, how did this get here? Who put this here? How this?
I can speak to it too because I've seen that. I've watched a lot of that game played.
Okay. How did it get here, Greg? Explain
it's
this.
pretty cool. Like the zombies have some really cool, like to TJ's point about like Dead Space, or like there's like layers of like stuff you can rip off a zombie and like get down to organs and bone, which is kind of cool. And like people online have said like there's some of the most gorgeous models they've seen in a video game in a long time. Now that doesn't mean the game is like a 10 out of 10 or like everyone should play it, but like it still is a good nomination for Gore because some of those zombies models are really good when you start decapitating or slashing or shooting or burning things off of them.
From what I remember, I'm pretty sure that Deadline 2 had its whole push was having its own Gore system actually built into the game itself. So like when you would hit a zombie and stuff like that, there were different layers of, both flesh and bone and stuff like that. But each like interaction was basically being generated by this Gore system.
Yeah, it's called the Flesh Gore system. And
the flesh system apparently. So that was kind of like their big emphasis when it came to like the brutality there with beating zombies with a baseball bat or with a machete and stuff like that. Each portion of the body you would hit would basically like unleash kind of all kind of goodies.
Like a blood pinata.
Procedural gore tech kind of just. So that's definitely different, and putting the kind of emphasis on the gore itself in game, I think is pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, a worthy nominee then. I just I didn't have a whole lot of time.
Here's the flesh is actually an abbreviation. So it's fully locational evisceration system for humanoids. Sure.
Wow.
Cool.
Pretty hilarious though. That's great.
Okay.
Someone top that one out.
Okay. I'll allow it. That's great. And this game, like Greg said, it may not be the best game of the year, but definitely worthy to be mentioned in this category. I like the level of detail. I think it's cool that we've seen multiple games kind of bring that similar kind of thing, where there's layers to the character models, right? So you're actually ripping skin off and then you're tearing organs out and stuff. But there's this one game that came out this year that it's kind of the gold standard as a franchise for Gore. I would put it up there as what I think of when I think of video game Gore. I think of the Mortal Kombat franchise. And we got a brand new universe this year. It's Mortal Kombat 1 again. Because they did Mortal Kombat 1, but it was just called Mortal Kombat when it came out. And then they rebooted Mortal Kombat, right? And it was just called Mortal Kombat again. But this is the first time we've ever had a Mortal Kombat called Mortal Kombat 1 at launch. And this is this one. And it's a brand new universe. But in the brand new universe, There's brand new fatalities, brand new fatal blows, brand new. I want to say there's brutalities in this game.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're all great. They're just great. David, you're our Mortal Kombat expert. Your nickname was Mortal in high school, and you've literally written the book on the franchise. So yeah, what would you like to say about the gore in this game?
I mean, the funny thing about these other nominees is they're all worthy, but like in the case of Dead Space and Resident Evil 4, there's often so much happening that you don't really have time to like concentrate on the gore.
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat has always put that gore right in your face. It is this franchise's calling card, and I think in this one they did a better job of straddling like some outlandish fatalities with the more disturbing, kind of uncomfortable watch fatalities. But there are some that are just so appropriate to each character, like Katana's Kiss of Death. Instead of blowing you up and making you, like expanding and then explode, you now melt. And what's kind of cool is if you look at the characters' faces, like if you give Melina the Kiss of Death, you can see like her teeth and her mouth are there as it's melting, and then becomes probably a generic model, but it's still effective. My favorite is Johnny Cage. Use a key fob to have one of his sports cars zooming up, and he just like closes the wing door and chops them right in half. Yeah, it's really gory, it's nasty, but it's also fun. And I feel like every Mortal Kombat game, when the first one, not this first one, not the second first one, but the first one came out, it was an outlier because you didn't see video games like that. And I feel like with every Mortal Kombat since, they've either been like in the case of Mortal Kombat 3, which was so outlandish, it was kind of Ed Boon and John Tobias saying, "Hey, fuck you," to the Congress. But
yeah, the congressional hearings were held because of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And you look at how far it's come from there to now.
And that's
I find it hilarious that there's no congressional hearings about this game.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like now a lot of video games are so violent that I feel like Mortal Kombat still has to stand out. Like, hey, we planted this bloody flag in this bloody soil first, and they're still just trying to like top everything. And they usually do it very, very admirably.
I will say that in this game specifically, what I think is new, just from a spectator standpoint, how cameo fighters play into the fatal blows, right? Like, they really open the door for a lot of variety when it comes to fatal blows, right?
They do, and they also, every cameo has at least one fatality. So if you give them one fatality, your characters two, you have three options every time you hear finish him, finish her, which is just variety is the spice of life and gore in video games.
Mm-hmm. So I really do think that the cameos add like a level of freshness to, what there's been an equation. For Mortal Kombat for the past, like, I don't know, five iterations. Mm-hmm. It felt new, just from a spectator standpoint.
Yeah, they're definitely like cameos provide a fresh experience across the board, which is something I plan to talk about at length in other categories, but like definitely contributing to the cameo. It also adds to like that team up feel, like you and your partner, who's not a constant, are just pulverizing these people into bloody soup.
Mm-hmm.
No, my question is, David, is at what point do we get too realistic and like where it becomes disturbing? Like where's that line? Because I agree, like there are some hilarious fatalities in that game. Like reptiles are some of the best ones, but like there's other ones that are like so atomically correct, like I get a little sick.
The line was Mortal Kombat 10 when Melina tackled you, disemboweled you, and then started eating the intestines. But I feel like no Mortal Kombat fatality has topped it. But they're still trying. So yeah, that's what I meant earlier, Greg. Like that's a good point. And I was thinking of you. Like there are some fatalities that are very like very anatomically accurate and a little unsettling. And then there are ones that are kind of that, but Johnny Cage is slicing you in half with the door of his sports car. Johnny Cage doing Johnny Cage shit,
well, like speaking of Johnny Cage, the Van Damme skin has its own fatality where he slams the door on you and then it drives away and explodes.
Yeah, that's actually the interesting thing. Like when you kill Van Damme, it looks like you're killing Van Damme, and when Peacemaker rolls in, you're killing John Cena. So there's that, like, we're getting into this territory of I know there are probably a lot of wrestling fans who are buying this game just to kill John Cena in as many ways as they possibly can. So it's interesting new territory for this franchise.
Also, just I know recently shipped a DLC character. Invincible's fatality is awesome.
Yeah,
The train one.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
man,
good. Yeah, or is it,
Banger.
not Invincible.
They
Sorry.
should bring
I'm
Invincible
ahead.
into this.
I
for the
want
Ultimate
Invincible to
Showdown.
come
Yeah,
into this game because
they should.
Invincible versus Omni-Man in Mortal Kombat would be fun as hell.
Yes.
I know it's kind of rare for them to do that with IP, but that would be awesome if that
Honestly,
was
like
yeah. Go ahead.
that would be. I'm thinking like Omni-Man's fatalities are gory, but I feel like everyone's really waiting to see what that psychopath Homelander has in
Yeah.
store in this game. Like I expect his to be very, very disturbing.
Absolutely. But Omni-Man's such a badass
Oh
that
yeah.
I his fatal blow is also awesome. So like I think Invincible is maybe the goriest TV show we've seen in a while. Definitely the goriest animated series we've seen in an extremely long time, maybe ever. So it's cool to see that IP merge into this universe because it's a brand new universe in Mortal Kombat 1. One in which Omni-Man can hang out with Jean-Claude Van Damme. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 1, I feel like the gore is leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else in this category.
Yeah.
People look to see how they can top, each fatality basically. So it's gonna keep ramping up. But also from like a competitive side, I mean, it's nothing more satisfying than hitting the fatality on your opponent after you kick their butt.
That's kind of the meta. Like the irony of fatalities is most pro players ignore them because
Yeah,
it's
they
just
do.
like a 10-second that you just want to
Yeah.
get to the next fight. So when they pull off a fatality or babality, brutality, it's kind of like a little brush your shoulder off and
Oh yeah,
a
it's
little
shade.
fun.
You're
Yep.
throwing so much shade if you're
You're
in a
stunning on 'em.
competition.
Yeah.
If you do the fatal blow into the fatality,
Yeah.
that's like an extra level of disrespect in a fighting game that really isn't anywhere else right now. And
No.
it does exist in the Mortal Kombat scene. But you're right,
And
like
there-
a lot of players, if they have mutual respect for each other, they just, throw a jab, move on to the next fight kind of thing.
And on the same sort of like meta level, back in the day before the internet, you had to like trust word of mouth in arcades. Like, I think we've talked about this in other categories, but when people told me, "Oh, there's this game where you can rip someone's head off," I was like, "Oh, video games are Mario and Zelda. That doesn't happen." And now with brutalities have very certain criteria you have to meet to do them. So when you see especially a pro player pull off a fatality, you get that clash like, "Oh," and like a little bit of respect for this person who knows what you don't know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like brutalities are my favorite thing to go with in that game. Actually, a little bit over fatalities, just because you have the surprise of the moment. Because a brutality, you can just bust out a brutality at the end of a combo if you do it right.
Mhm.
And some of those brutalities go hard to the paint. My favorite is probably, I mean, I main Reptile, so I'm a little biased. But he has a death roll where like he'll jump at them in his reptile form and spin. If you finish the match with that and tap up a couple times, he'll climb on top of them and just eat their heart right out of their chest. And it is fast, it is intense, it is hilarious, it's satisfying, and it solves that whole like, well, I finished you anyway, and we can move on to the next match now.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree that brutalities are my favorite thing out of the three. Like if you compare fatal blows, fatalities, and brutalities, because it is just shocking when it happens in real time. You're like, oh my god. And yeah, if that happens in an esports setting, the crowd goes absolutely nuts. So I do think brutalities are awesome, and they're fast. I think that's super important. Fatal blows are just like it felt like what was the last MK, was that 11 or 12?
Yeah.
It was 11.
11.
Right?
Mhm.
Fatal blows felt too long in MK11
Yes.
for me. Like I was like, okay, Sonya, yeah, okay,
They're
we got a
longer than
helicopter.
fatalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like they made fatal blows a little bit shorter in MK1, but still brutalities are definitely the shortest thing in there, and all of them are disgusting. It's great.
Mhm.
And some of them are like really good, smart nods to older stuff. Like Reptile also has one where he'll pick them up, take a chomp out of their side, and then chew off their arm, and then rub his belly, a la Mortal Kombat 2.
Yep. There's a lot of nods to the past fatalities and other things. Are friendships in this game or no?
Nah. Not yet, anyways. We'll see if they come later.
Yeah.
I think that's like just one last thing. One of the problems Mortal Kombat in particular has struggled with since the advent of the internet is keeping things secret, because word of mouth was very powerful in the arcade days. They tried it with the crypt, but even like you give it 24 to 48 hours and you knew the location of every like skin and character in the deception crypt, right? But brutalities are pretty cool because they are still really hard to find. There are brutalities in Mortal Kombat 11 that have still not been found. So when you see them, not only are you like shocked and excited by the gore, but you are seeing something that maybe the world is seeing for the first time, which just adds it's that arcade collective experience of sharing in something, which is really damn cool. And no other fighting game does that.
That's true. Awesome. Well, I think we've broken down all the nominees as well as we possibly could. Let's get to the voting. Steve.
I'm going with Mortal Kombat 1 choice.
Now, Steve, as our resident Nintendo evangelist and streamer, have you played Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch?
No, I haven't.
Good.
But I grew up. I love Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not gotten. I'm not playing it on Switch.
No, I know. It's very, very bad.
Yeah,
I was thinking about it until I saw some reports online about it, and I was like, nope, that's it. And when it took 40 gigs on my Switch, I was like, fuck that. So.
Yeah. I kind of want to get it just for the memes. There's so many
content.
There's good memes there.
The meme content wagon has been filled. You're good, dude. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's too late.
Fine. What platform are you playing it on, David? Just out of curiosity.
I reviewed it on PS5.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like playing that on a console more than on a PC?
Generally, because if you get like I was really into online for a while, like playing hours a night, and the fighting game audience is just broader on consoles compared to PC. Also,
More on PlayStation too.
Yeah, more on PlayStation specifically, and also like WB's PC ports are just hit or miss that I just don't trust them at launch. So
that's fair.
Yeah,
and they didn't ship with crossplay either, so you want to be where the player base is.
Yep.
Anyway, that's a different topic for a different day at the Shacknews Awards.
I'm ready for it.
I'm just kind of teasing it. I'm giving people
you got to tease
teasers here and there, sprinkling little teasers because I think the best fighting game debate is going to be a hell of a debate when it happens.
It is.
Okay. We had an ongoing, wrestling storyline going on for the past few weeks, leading up to this main event.
Bill.
Mortal Kombat 1.
Awesome. TJ.
Gotta go with Mortal Kombat 1.
Greg.
I'm gonna go Resident Evil 4.
You would.
No flawless victory.
No sweep.
Okay. I'm gonna go for Mortal Kombat 1. Donovan.
Mortal Kombat 1.
Pretty sure, David, you're going Mortal Kombat 1?
Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah. And Denny?
Yes. Mortal Kombat 1, indeed.
Yeah.
Get it in there.
I just heard it. I'm going to go to our absentee ballots just to confirm that everyone loves Mortal Kombat. Ozzy voted for Mortal Kombat.
You sure that wasn't me? You sure that was Ozzy?
It was Ozzy.
That's a ROM hack. That's gotta be a ROM hack.
It's a Greg error.
And Sam also voted for Mortal Kombat. So that is almost a flawless victory if it weren't for Greg.
Yeah, I'll say Greg with the brutality.
Greg came in there and was just like, boom! RE4. And your head just went flying off. RE4 has great gore.
Yeah,
so does Dead Space. Like, so does RoboCop. And so does Dead Island 2. Hey, do you know Diablo 4 exists? But
It's the game.
9 Shack staffers to 1 have decided that Mortal Kombat 1 has the best gore of any game that released in the year 2023. So congratulations to NetherRealm Studios. You have won the Shacknews Award for Best Gore.